An example for galvanic cell. If the oxidation electrode is zinc in zinc ions is joined to a reduction electrode copper electrode in copper ions, we get a Daniell cell. The anode of this cell consists of zinc rod dipped in the solution of zinc sulfate of concentration C1. The cathode is made by immersing a copper rod in the solution of copper sulfate of concentration C2. The solutions of zinc ions and copper ions are made in electrical communication by direct contact or through a salt bridge. At the oxidation electrode, that is anode, which is of negative polarity, zinc atoms pass into the solution in the form of zinc ions. That is, zinc is converted into Zn2 plus with C1 concentration plus 2 electrons. While the reduction electrode, that is the cathode, of copper ions change into copper atoms, that is Cu2 plus of concentration C2, accept 2 electron and forms copper. Now, these are the reactions taking place in the cell. One is an oxidation, that is anode. Always remember, in the anode it is oxidation. And in the cathode always reduction. That is why we call it as an redox reaction. Redox reaction is the reason for the generation of electric current. Now, what is meant by salt bridge and its function? A salt bridge is a U-shaped glass tube filled with either concentrated solution of an inert electrolyte such as potassium chloride, potassium nitrate, potassium sulfate, etc., or the solidified solution of such an electrolyte in an agar-agar, that means it is in form of a gelatin. Agar-agar and gelatin, that means it should stick. This is a U-tube, in a U-shaped tube in which the potassium chloride or potassium nitrate, in order to stick it to the inside the U-tube, we need agar-agar or gelatin. Then only we can keep this salt bridge in the two solution, and you have to put a cotton plug, otherwise it will come off from the U-tube. The term inert electrolyte here refers to an electrolyte which neither take part in the redox reaction occurring in the cell nor reacts with either of the electrolytes present in the 2-half cell. This is very important. What is meant by inert electrolyte? Inert electrolyte means the electrolyte which is given in the salt bridge. For example, take potassium chloride. This potassium chloride neither take part in the reaction of the electrolyte here in the zinc sulfate or the cupric sulfate in the solution, that is copper electrode immersed in cupric sulfate or the zinc electrode immersed in zinc sulfate. These two solution has nothing to do with this potassium chloride in the salt bridge. That is why it is called an inert electrolyte. Now, the main functions of the salt bridge as follows. Very important. Give two functions of the salt bridge. It completes the electrical circuit by allowing the ions to flow from 1/2 cell. That means zinc in zinc sulfate is considered as 1/2 cell, and to another half cell, that is copper in copper sulfate solution. 2. It maintains the electrical neutrality of the solution present in the 2/2 cell. Now we are going to explain how it is maintain the electrical neutrality. Explain the mechanism involved in the salt bridge. If a salt bridge is not used, the electrical balance of the ions in the electrolyte solution of the two electrodes will get disturbed. That means without a salt bridge we cannot make a communication with the two electrodes for example to the solution to our half cells. For example, let us consider the case of a Daniel cell. Due to the oxidation process occurring at the anode, the zinc atoms are changed into Zn2 plus, which pass into the anode solution. At the same time, Cu2 plus ions present in the cathode solution takes the electron and reduce it into copper atoms. That means zinc electrode is giving as Zn2 plus and 2 electrons are forming in zinc. Whereas the copper electrode, what it is doing is that Cu2 plus ions will come near to the copper and it will accept 2 electron and get converted to metallic copper. That is, accepts 2 electron and get converted to copper. These are the reaction taking place. Then at the same time, Cu2 plus ion present in the cathode solution, this is a Cu2 plus ion present in the cathode solution, take electron, that means accept electrons and reduce it into copper atoms, which deposit on the cathode. That means it forms a deposit on the cathode. Thus, during the operation of the cell, Zn2 plus ions accumulate in the anodic solution and the deficiency of the Cu2 plus ions occurs in the cathodic solution. That means when zinc is going into the solution as Zn2 plus, the electrons are accepted by Cu2 plus, but Zn2 plus will form a cloud near the anode. That is the most important point. The electrons, what it is liberated, is taken by the copper, Cu2 plus ion. But what about this Zn2 plus ion? It will form a very close to the zinc electrode. We have to remove it. Otherwise, zinc cannot form Zn2 plus and 2 electron further. Therefore, what the anodic solution acquires an extra positive charge and the cathodic solution extra negative charge. That means the electrons, when it is formed, electrons are negatively charged particle. Therefore, this reaction, in order to maintain it, this Zn2 plus and 2 electrons which is formed in the anode, that is a negative charge due to the here in the copper, that is C, in the zinc ions are forming in the anode and Cu2 plus ions and the SO4 ions, SO Cu2 plus and SO4 2 minus. In the Cu2 plus accept electron and get deposited. What about the SO4 2 minus ion? SO4 2 minus ion forms a cloud here. Therefore, Zn2 plus goes into solution and the 2 electrons forms a negative atmosphere here. Zn2 plus is there in the solution. This negatively charged atmosphere of this zinc should be removed by a positive charge. Therefore, K plus from the salt bridge will help here in this case. Just listen to the theory part. Thus, this disturbs the electrical neutrality of the solution. The accumulation of the positive around the zinc electrode prevents the flow of electrons to the Cu2 plus ions. That is, if more and more zinc plus it forms a coating on the anode, that is zinc electrode, it cannot pass the electron. It cannot pass the electron to copper electrode. That is the defect. This defect is going to be rectified. That means when Zn2 plus and electrons are formed, these electrons will not be allowed to pass because of the cloud of this Zn2 plus. Therefore, flow of electrons is hindered. This flow of electron cannot take place and the cell stops working after some time. If the flow of electrons is not there, that means the cell is going to stop. The salt bridge prevents the accumulation of the excess charge around both the electrode and the cathode. Both the electrode, that means anode and the cathode. When the concentration of the Zn2 plus ions in the anodic solution increases, sufficient number of Cl minus migrate from the salt bridge to the anodic solution and maintain the electrical neutrality in the anode solution. That means number of Zn2 plus is there on the anode, Zn2 plus. Therefore, the Cl minus from the salt bridge comes and makes a neutrality in this case. That means for each zinc ion, 2 chloride ions will come from the salt bridge and therefore making the electrical neutrality. Therefore, passage of electron is very free. Now, similarly, when the concentration of the SO4 minus ion increases in the cathodic solution, sufficient number of, that means this is on the anode. On the cathode, what happens is that SO4 2 minus ions are plenty because all the Cu2 plus ions are getting deposited on the cathode. But this SO4 2 minus ions are there. This Cu2 plus ions cannot be deposited. Therefore, from the salt bridge, K plus ions will come into the solution. So that for each SO4 minus, 2 K plus ions will come into the solution and maintains an electrical neutrality. Therefore, in the anode is made neutral, maintained a neutrality, and the cathode also maintained a neutrality. Therefore, in the cathodic solution, by sufficient number of K plus ions, that is a K plus ion makes the SO4 2 minus neutral and migrate from the salt bridge to the cathode solution and maintain the electrical neutrality of the solution. This is called the use of salt bridge.